trapping. I get this question a lot. How do I practice frame trapping in DBFZ? And we really honestly kind of covered this before. If we go into our enemy settings, we can set them to guard all, and we can set them to counterattack with whatever it is that we're trying to practice beating. I think realistically, a jab is probably the most likely thing that people are gonna mash with, and it's probably their fastest thing. So if we can frame trap a jab, we will know that we are doing it correctly. We could also double check, like, okay, well, we could also set them to jump as a counterattack setting. So let's set this to up. And now whenever they recover from blocking, they will try to jump. And we can practice catching this jump startup. And I'm a little too late here. I'm purposely gonna be a little too late. And then now we frame trap, we got it right, and we're good to go. This isn't actually a perfect way of doing this, because what if we wanna practice frame trapping, but we wanna not know when it's coming? We don't wanna know when they're gonna mash. We want the actual practice of hit confirming whatever move happened to hit them jumping or mashing or whatever it was. So there's another thing we can do here. We can counterattack not just with any specific tool like a button or a direction, we can also play back a recording. So we can record them jumping, or record them mashing, or we could record them blocking. So actually what we can do, let's go to our training dummy recording settings. What we can do, let's delete our recordings because we don't need these anymore. Let's record one where we just down back, so we're blocking. I'm just gonna hold down back from the very moment that I hit record, and we're good to go. And now, since we have them set to play back the recording, you'll see that Kid Buu is down backing as a response. Let's set another one where he tries to mash at the same time. Now this can be a little tough to get frame 1 as a recording, so what you could do is you could hit the recording button and the button you want to mash with together at the same time. This is the part where you all find out I'm playing Hitbox. So what we could do, this is my recording button right here, and this is my button I want to mash with right here. So let's just hit these at the same time and then save it. And now he's gonna mash with 5L pretty much frame 1 or very, very close to frame 1 if we didn't get it perfectly. Now, the final step here, let's set these to playback at random. This doesn't just affect when we use playback as our playback button, right? So we're hitting the playback button, sometimes he's down backing, sometimes he's jabbing, right? This also affects when a playback happens as a counterattack setting. So sometimes he's gonna down back, and sometimes he's gonna mash, and it should be random. And we should still be able to influence how often these happen. So I think slot 1 was down back, and slot 2 was mashing. So let's make it so slot 2 happens less often, because we want it to be a surprise when he tries to mash out of our string. Oh, don't forget to set this to random. And as you can see, we have blocking happening 5 times as often as mashing, essentially. And now we can practice our frame traps. And at some point, there we go, at some point he's gonna mash, and we can practice comboing off of it. And this is realistically how it's gonna go in a real match. But yeah, we could even practice frame trapping after every single hit. And you can kind of get an idea of how good we're doing by how often we actually catch their mashing. Now let's actually do one more recording where we end up recording a reflect and then mashing after the reflect. So ideally what we do is we want to have Kid Buu reflect and then stomp. Because this is a really common thing people do, right? They reflect and then they use their farthest tool to challenge you after they push you away. Tons of people do this. How do we beat this without having to hard call it out anyway? Or how can we save ourselves when we know we're in a position to die after we got reflected? You can practice that situation, that scramble. So let's set one where Kid Buu reflects and mashes stomp. And now if we play this one back, now he's gonna do that. So let's set this one to happen maybe a little more often than mashing, if that's something we really wanna practice against. And now we can save ourselves with Vanish in the scramble. Although I didn't have it set to random, so I knew that was gonna happen. So now we can practice hit confirming if we happen to get the frame trap while still doing our pressure, and if we happen to get reflected, maybe we could try to save ourselves with Vanish or something like that. There we go. So in the process of editing this video, I realized there was an important note that I completely left out. A really important note just about how do we know what we need to be labbing for our offense in the first place? Generally, when someone asks, how can I improve my offense or how can I improve my pressure, I typically will tell them to do what we've already done in this video. I want you to learn how to practice your frame traps, how to start beating someone who's trying to mash and jump out of your pressure, and get really accustomed to that and practice that in training mode. Not every person that you fight is going to disrespect your pressure in the exact same way. Not everyone's just going to mash and jump out of your pressure. So what I would recommend is occasionally reflect on your matches, think about what people have been doing that you have not been dealing with very well on offense. And I want you to go back in training mode and learn how to beat that option in as many different ways as possible. So if I were to watch one of my matches and I found that I was losing to reflect a lot of the time, maybe against a character like Kid Buu who wants to reflect and then mash in order to beat me afterwards. So I have Kid Buu here set to reflect and then mash stomp. So if I were to get reflected away, I'd probably get punished. How can I structure my pressure to beat this reflect into stomp as many different ways as possible? And 3 ways come to mind off the top of my head. The first is we could actually frame trap with a reflect proof string. Once we frame trap, we're going to cancel into our farthest reaching attack, and that could be maybe a Ki Blast, or it could be some sort of special move that moves us really far forward, or maybe it could be something along the lines of just canceling into a heavy, which generally reaches pretty far. And every character is going to have something a little bit different that seems to work for this. Pretty much every character has some move or even a set of moves that let you stay in and continue pressure or possibly hit them if they try to punish you after they reflect you. So I try to, after a frame trap, cancel into one of those moves. And this is generally what we would call a reflect proof string. Pretty much every character has something along these lines. You're just going to have to experiment with what works. The other way we could beat reflect and call it out would just be to go for a throw mix-up. If we have a character that has some kind of a grab, we could do that, or we could just go for Dragon Rush at some point during our pressure. And then the last option we have is to just hard bait it, by just stopping what we're doing and waiting for the reflect to happen. What's really nice about hard baiting reflect is that you can get such a better combo by whiff punishing it with your best starter, as opposed to just going for a grab. Always really fun. But that's actually not the best part about just hard baiting the reflect. Let's set up some recordings of some other things that people might do to fight their way out. They might guess with Vanish, right? They might guess with a level 3. Or they might guess with maybe a hard tag. So now we have all these recordings, and we can set these to playback as a counterattack setting on random, and just waiting lets us punish all of these. We can punish the hard tag when we see them come in. If they go for the reflect, we can whiff punish it. If they go for Vanish, we can 2H it. And of course, if they go for a level 3, we're going to be in a perfect position to block it and punish it. So hypothetically, we found that we had a problem punishing someone who was reflecting a lot while defending. And we found 3 ways that we can structure our pressure in order to deal with that a lot better. We can frame trap with a reflect proof string. We could just go for a Dragon Rush or some other kind of grab. Or of course we could just hard bait it and then get a really good punish after it whiffs. And the reason that we wanted to find more than just one way of beating something is because each one of these serves a different purpose. The reflect proof string lets us frame trap while also staying in and possibly beating the reflect if they try to challenge us after they do the reflect. The grab will beat the reflect, but it also doubles as a mix-up. And of course, hard baiting it, as we showed earlier, will beat so much more than just reflect. I say this a lot, but you'd be surprised how much stuff you can beat by doing absolutely nothing, as long as you're ready and willing to punish some of those risks that your opponent might take. So really take your time to figure out what it is that you're struggling with on offense, and go into training mode and find multiple solutions to each problem you might have. Even if they aren't the best solutions, it's still worthwhile to lab multiple versions out. Because in addition to covering multiple different things with each solution you find, you're probably also going to do a good job of making your pressure less predictable for the opponent. We didn't specifically cover mix-ups in this video because I think those are going to be different for every character. Well-structured pressure helps you in every match, but mix-ups only help you against people who are already respecting you. So it's not really worth emphasizing mix-ups until we've built up this sort of thing first. Anyway, I really hope that this was able to help you out. I get a lot of questions about how to structure pressure, how to practice frame trapping, how to practice pressure in general. And I really hope that this was able to give some of you a nudge in the right direction. If you're interested in continuing to learn Dragon Ball FighterZ and other fighting games with me, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel or following me over on Twitch to see when I go live. I really appreciate all the support lately. I'll be back with more soon.